Remember back in the day when you had to essentially give your left testicle just to be able to pick up an MCU Marvel Legends action figure? No, that's because you have a tiny little left nut. Nobody is interested in that. You couldn't even give that away. But all jokes aside, guys, let's get serious here for a second, okay? Marvel Legends in general were quite expensive for a long stretch, a long period of time. And honestly, I'm kind of surprised. I went online today, just kind of did some online shopping, checked out Walmart and a few other websites, and I'm just pleasantly surprised. Well, I wouldn't say pleasantly because, I think it's a symbiotic relationship. You obviously want to see Hasbro be marginally successful because you want them to stay in business. You want them to continue to give us, Marvel Legends and G.I. Joes and so many other lines that they have under their belt. But at the same time, once in a while, you do want to see those clearance action figures. And as of the last couple of days, I've been running into way more. And I kind of just wanted to talk about it. It's not really a structured video. It's kind of me just rambling on, which I guess is really all the videos that I have on the channel. I have this really bad habit of just rambling and talking about offbeat topics that have to do with action figures. But in today, we're going to do a little bit of that. One of the bigger ones was that MCU Marvel Legends Iron Man. This one, we got it, I think, a couple of times already. This is essentially just a reissue. I'm not sure if the original terminology for this line is the Legacy line. I think I've seen that thrown around quite a bit, but not all of them are from the Legacy collection. But let's just assume that they're all within that same subline. It's essentially just giving you a second opportunity at an MCU action figure that you may have missed back in the day. Some of these are out of circulation. They're somewhat difficult to find. You have to pay, quite a hefty price point through like eBay and Amazon. And so Hasbro is just making it readily available for the consumer. I will say, to me, it's a balancing act. You can't just continue to do that, give us some really old, outdated action figures. I think from time to time, they do need to give them the proper updates. And so I think that'll be coming down the line, but I think it's a little bit dirty, especially some of these figures were actually pretty affordable and readily available for the most part. Like, you may have to pay close to retail. I've seen some of these even on clearance, my local toy shows and things of that nature at local conventions. And so it doesn't really make sense that Hasbro would decide to re-release them. It's quite baffling, but you do get a second opportunity, and I'm seeing that way more consistently from Hasbro. Like I said, it's a balancing act. From time to time, if a figure isn't like massively outdated, then I guess you can, re-release it. But sometimes you'll get like an MCU Spider-Man with the single hinge, no toe articulation, ugly pins. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Why not re-release the figure on a new body mold, I guess is what I'm saying. I'm assuming it's probably too much work and the profit margins are not great for them. Whereas in with the Legacy collection, they can just re-release a figure that's already been released in the past. There's probably not as much of an investment. They don't have to pay an engineer to go in there and manufacture a brand new body mold, digital renders, things of that nature. There's no planning. It's just, hey, go back into production with this figure, this exact body mold. We're just going to put it in new packaging. But as you can see, the consumers are speaking with their wallets. This Iron Man is going for $9, which is a crazy, crazy deal. I think originally they were retailing for about $24.99, I want to say, depending on where you picked it up. I saw it for as high as like $27.99 through like Big Bad Toy Store and Entertainment Earth and a few other online retailers. And it's worth mentioning the figure was actually somewhat worth it even at retail. It's definitely worth it now. But back then you were getting 4 hands total and then 4 repulsor blast effect pieces, which is not something that you usually got. I'm trying to remember exactly what this came with originally because it was featured, I think, in a 2-pack and then a single carded Build-A-Figure wave. So I can't quite remember those, but I will say it's, a decent amount of accessories. The repulsor blast effect pieces, we were always getting shorted on. Sometimes you would only get 2, sometimes you would get none. You would have to use those blast effect pieces from other releases or some that you had extras in your bins. And but this is perfect. You're getting the extra hands, all the hands that you may need for Iron Man, the blast effect pieces. All I will say, I would have loved to see a Tony Stark head sculpt, Robert Downey Jr., but unfortunately you just get that. But for $9, I think this is an absolute killer deal. Then you have the stripped down Iron Spider, which comes with 4 hands total, fisted hands, the web shooting hands, and then 2 web effect pieces. Now I'm gonna go out on a limb, I could be wrong on this, but I don't remember this particular version coming with those web effect pieces. I think those were first featured later in like a retro carded line first. I could be wrong, but I don't remember those coming with his Iron Spider. But it's cool, you get some extra web accessory pieces, and this figure as well is going for $10. Just to reiterate, these originally were retailing between like $25 to $28, and then if you were looking to purchase the old school original version, some of these were going for like $30 to $40. I think Iron Spider, I might have seen it on clearance at my local toy show. I'm talking about the original release for like $10. So this one was readily available. It was kind of a little bit of a cash grab from Hasbro, but it just goes to show $10 I think it is an absolutely killer deal. There's nothing new about the figure as far as I can tell. I think it's just a reuse or a reissue of the older figure. As I said, would have loved the pinless tech, would have loved a Tom Holland head. Bare minimum, I would have been just happy with a Tom Holland head sculpt here, just as an alternate way of displaying the figure. Regardless, you can't pick this up now for $10. And then in case you only think that MCU action figures are being marked down by Hasbro, there is also this Madam Hydra Marvel Legends action figure, which was a part of that controller Build-A-Figure. This one was a really interesting wave, and we've said this before, the budgets are based on wave per wave basis. So sometimes you'll get certain action figures that Hasbro knows is not going to sell very well, but they're willing to give the consumer base or the hardcore Marvel fan base action figures that are very deep cuts. And this is a perfect example of this. As I've always said, Hasbro sometimes deserves criticism, sometimes they deserve to be hailed in high regard, and this is a perfect example of them kind of going out on a limb for their consumer base. I don't think that they ever, or anybody that collects Marvel Legends or that has collected Marvel Legends for the past few years, I don't think anybody expected this figure to sell out. And we can now see why. It's just not a character that people are very interested in. Even the Build-A-Figure was kind of a little bit obscure to certain people. And by the way, some people get offended when I say a certain character is obscure or not as well known. I have to reiterate, for the modern day consumer, like people that read comic books, that are into the Marvel universe, they're very familiar with these characters. But if it's just somebody that's going in there that just likes collecting action figures on, as a little bit of a side hobby, a lot of these characters are not very familiar to them. They probably only collect like main characters, whether it's like Spider-Man, Captain America, Hulk. Hasbro essentially knew that they were going to take a little bit of a hit on this, but they still decided to release it. You can now pick this figure up for under $8. Absolutely killer deal, even if it's just like custom fodder, or if it's a figure that you just want to try out and play around with. It is on that older female body with pins, but like I said, it's still a cool figure, comes with some cool extra accessories, and at least you can look forward to trying to complete that Build-A-Figure if that's something that you want to go down and hunt yourselves. There's also the Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy #3, and this particular MCU action figure has always been well under retail. I've seen it for as low as like $7 to $8. I think right now you'll probably find it between the lines of like $10 to about $13, and I kind of get it. It's an outdated body mold. The uniform is like too specific to that one film. And then we do have the Black Panther, or Shuri as the Black Panther MCU action figure. This one kind of caught me off guard for the longest time. It's actually a pretty decent female body for the time. This movie came out like 3-4 years ago. So at the time when this figure was released, it was considered to be a pretty good, solid female body mold. By now it's probably a little bit outdated. But I've never really understood the hate. I think most people hate on the character and the actress more so than the actual action figure. I think it's a good, solid figure. And same thing with the Star-Lord action figure. I think as time goes by, people will learn to appreciate the figures a little bit more. But both of those have been readily available and extremely affordable. I think Shuri, I've seen her as low as for like $3 to $4 at like local Targets and Walmarts. And then Star-Lord, as I said, I've already seen him for as low as like maybe $7 to $8, depending on where you look. But these are just some examples. I'm not going to dig too deep. I'm not going to go too far and waste a ton of time naming every single figure that's on sale right now. My point is, there's, I think, a little bit of revolution happening right now as we speak. I think consumers are starting to kind of turn against Hasbro a little bit. We just saw that Spider-Man Gameverse, wave get a ton of hate. Now, personally, I don't really have anything against it per se. You know, a lot of those figures really don't resonate with me personally, aside from the symbiote Spider-Man and the giant Venom that we're supposed to be getting. Those really caught my attention. Aside from that, the rest of the figures are essentially just skins for a Spider-Man figure. It's like a new suit. Some of them come with like really outdated technology, but people just didn't like the wave. And I have a very strong feeling that some of these will end up, maybe not like super clearance, but at least like 50% off at your local retailer. So the red flags are there. Same thing with the Black Series line. And I hate to go back to this because I just talked about it in like a video a few days ago, but it is worth mentioning because it kind of ties back in. But the Walmart exclusive stuff is still there for the most part. I think just the Spider-Man 77 sold out. Aside from that, like the Ghost Spider is still up for pre-order. You can still pick that figure up. Count Dooku is still available. I think the Op Clone Trooper was still available, and then R2D2 was also available. These are supposed to be figures that fly off the shelf. They're supposed to sell out, especially if they're Walmart or Target exclusives. They usually just have a way of being very difficult to find. That's not the case right now, especially with their Star Wars properties, you know, more so than Marvel Legends, but we're starting to see it kind of trickle over to the Marvel Legends line. This, I think, has to be worrisome for them. There are some really good waves that they've released here and there, like they did have the Secret War stuff with Iron Man, Captain America, and the symbiote Spider-Man, and that wave sold extremely well from what I can see. But aside from that, they've had quite a few pitfalls since then. And like I said, the Spider-Man wave was just a perfect example, and now we're seeing even the Legacy Edition you know, be the latest victim here. And as I said, these are just some examples. Figures go in and out of clearance for Hasbro for the most part. Now, I will say some people will just assume that like the price spikes back up once these sell out, but let's just say this is like official retailer business. This is coming directly from Marvel or from Hasbro. If they sell out and then the price spikes a little bit, it doesn't necessarily mean that the sale is over or that they just decided to mark the prices back up. What actually happens is they just sold out all their inventory, and then whatever you see at, let's say, let's put the Iron Man as an example. Let's say it's at $9 at the moment. If those figures sell out at $9 and then you see it spike up to like $15 to $16 or even $20, $21, it doesn't mean that Hasbro is just spiking those figures back up. It just means that there's another seller that has these figures that is not Hasbro. It's just like a third-party seller or another retailer that sells through Walmart, and they mark the figures up. They either bought the inventory and then are reselling it for a little bit more, or they're just people that had those figures. It's like the next best deal aside from this $9 deal once it, you know, sells out. So it's just worth mentioning that eventually these figures might go up a little bit in price, but at the moment, $9, that's insane for an MCU action figure. And I get it, a lot of it has to do with the fact that the MCU is in shambles. The Star Wars universe is in shambles. Nobody's really watching any of the Disney Plus shows. And I think that is kind of like I said, it's trickling into the collectibles at the moment. And as I said, it's not all bad. We have had some figures, like for example, the new Daredevil from the Disney Plus Born Again series, like that sold out incredibly well. And it appears that it's going to be very difficult to find. And if they decide to release a Punisher from the same thing from the Disney Plus show, live action show, that one has the potential of selling out. So they will still have some pretty big heavy hitters sell out extremely well. But as I said, it's just kind of interesting. There's also a third party thing going on. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but a lot of like the stuff that had been selling out or was very difficult to find is now at a reasonable price point. Like the symbiote Spider-Man for a while was selling for like almost $50 to $60. You can actually purchase it right now. Same thing with Agent Venom, which we thought was going to sell out, still at retail. Spider-Man Unlimited. So many of these figures that, you know, appear to have kind of a really big following and a really rabid fan base, they're still on like digital store shelves. Not to mention there was also the No Way Home Spider-Man action figures. Those like for the longest time are going for about $50 to $60. You had Toby, you had Andrew, and you had Tom Holland. Like all of them were sold out. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but the Amazing Spider-Man was the one that was the most difficult to find, followed by Tobey Maguire's. Those were going, like I said, for about like $40 to $50. You can actually find a lot of these online for just regular retail, about $25 to $26. Is that the collectible community letting Hasbro know that they're a little bit fatigued from what they're offering. They want to see something new. They want to see something creative. They want to see them push the envelope a little bit more. I personally feel so, and hopefully Hasbro decides to switch things up, because I think this is really bad, not only for the consumer, because obviously, as I said, the worse that they see the numbers, they may scale back a little bit, or they may just revert to using old tech. That way they're saving money and, you know, not taking too much risks. Or that just means, as I said, scaling back, not releasing as many figures because they're just not seeing the profit there. So like I said, I may just be making something out of nothing, but this is something that was really fascinating to me. We're starting to see a lot of clearance action figures. We're starting to see a lot of stuff that usually would sell out or was selling out now be readily available and in stock. Does this mean that not as many people are collecting? Does this mean that people are being more selective, or is it just like the entire market at the moment? Is it just like the financial situation with, you know, the tariffs looming and all that? Are people just trying to save their money? I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say. Let me know down below in the comment section. As always, if you guys enjoy this type of rambling content, which I do pretty consistently, I get into the bad habit of rambling, you guys can definitely stay tuned. We do upload pretty consistently. So thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to enjoy the hobby. I know it's kind of difficult to do from time to time because, you know, we're criticizing and, you know, we're trying to catch those pre-order windows and things of that nature, and it can be pretty frustrating. But when you get the chance, enjoy your figures, pose them, photograph them, play with your kids, whatever it is that you're into when it comes down to action figures, do it, enjoy it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.